in scrim plays in particular. And most of the teams, when they were trying to find out where Garrosh fits, were also using him sometimes as a solo laner, sometimes as the main tank, sometimes as an off tank. They were really just trying to find a good place for him and good synergies with other heroes. So I'm excited what we're going to see today.
Well, Tomb of the Spider Queen, let's get this started here. Tricked Esports starting with the ban. As always, wave clear continues to be very powerful on this battleground, but we've been seeing more Tassadar and Trasadar in the past when we were going into the Western Clash. We'll see if that will pop up once again. Also, a hero that fell off a little bit was that Malthael, as he got nerfed a couple patches ago.
Yeah, Malthael is still a hero that I could see on the offlane for Tomb of the Spider Queen in particular, though. For now, Tricked is just following a trend that we have seen at the Eastern and the Western Clash, batting out Oriel. She's just way too strong, and following it up with an early pick on Tassadar. And Tassadar has been rising as a first pick a lot. Right now, he's one of the most contested picks in the European scene. Whereas for the good guys, Rhaegar is actually a very, very high prioritized hero right now. Kronos loves to play the hero, we see that a lot from him. So no surprise that this is happening for them. And Greymane, overall, I mean, he's simply fantastic on the map.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Greymane, Dingtoss Bakery actually just put an entire thought process onto our website, heroestorm.com/esports, talking about Greymane and where he is so strong. He's such a comfortable first pick hero that there is absolutely no negatives to actually picking him up. So there's that Greymane already in the mix.
The thing is with Greymane, you just can't go wrong picking him early.
Wave clear, burst, you have everything.
Exactly, and you can also, of course, adapt. I must say that the cool thing for me personally, going from the Eastern or from the Western Clash to the Eastern Clash, was just the difference in playstyle at times, where you commit so much more to the walk-in form. And you've been pointing out Tracer a bit earlier. She's super popular at this point on basically any map, but Tomb of the Spider Queen is one of them. We have seen Tracer play earlier today also at HGC Korea. Was also played here in the series between Tempest and Mighty. Tempest in the end was able to take the series with a 3-1 if I'm not mistaken. And they played on the last map Tomb of the Spider Queen also at Tassadar Tracer composition.
I mean, if you look at Tricked Esports right now too, they are very happy where they're sitting. You have Tassadar Tracer, which is a great combination. You have that Uther for the backup already. They have a strong foundation to where they can build into anything they want. Get an engage take for that fourth pick, maybe a little bit more wave clear, and you're already set for Tomb of the Spider Queen. So they have got to love the draft that they are opening with.
So at this point, if you're the good guys, you are thinking about how do we control this? We need something that can lock Tracer down. Ideally, we could try and play a bit of a wave clear battle against our opponent. Since if you look at what Trick currently has, they have wave clear on the side of Tassadar, but not really to an extent where you would like it to have on Tomb of the Spider Queen. Garrosh now being banned out targets a bit what the good guys have been doing just recently. This is of course also the teams knowing each other's style quite well. But for the good guys, I would definitely expect a few stuns to be locked in now so that they have some tools that can deal with Tracer in particular.
Some lockdown right away. I mean, thinking team good guys, what's one hero that you mainly think about for BKB? Stitches, Murden being available. Now with Garrosh being taken away, those options are still available for team good guys to move into. The wave clear build has still been great for Stitches, moving into the full slam build, bringing out the area effect damage and slowing down your opponent. So that could be the go-to, especially with Greymane being here and having that go for the throat.
One thing that we could also see with what they have already, it's a little bit less common, but it makes a bit of a comeback. Varian against Tracer. With the Greymane already in the setup, you have the lockdown through Taunt, and then you can head straight into the Cursed Bullet. But as I said, on this map, it's a little bit less common. ETC, I like that a lot. That's the first lockdown that you have. And Malthael for the solo lane. Anti-hero is going to play it here. Malthael on the map in general excels, and I'm pretty hyped for that. Good Malthael can definitely change the course of a battle towards the later end of the game.
ETC being picked up here makes that early game be a little bit more reserved for Tricked Esports. You want to make sure you're not getting caught by those power slides, but moving into the mid game, we have the option for Tassadar to move into Force Wall, which can be very punishing against an ETC that might overstep. It requires the support to kind of be on their heels, showing up with the heals, bringing out those cleanses, and making sure they have an escape.
Yeah, this is the reason why TGG is going to take Medivh last. No, I'm just kidding.
No, Alex Aproji though.
Portal plays are pretty solid, but yeah, for Tricked we have the roaming Zool, by now a bit of a meme when we're talking about Tricked Esports. And
is it a meme if it works though, Caldor? That's the question.
Yeah, not really, right? Actually, it isn't.
Yeah.
Alex makes Zool work. The interesting part is that they played Zool before anybody else thought it was cool. Before Zool had the bit of a rework where now other teams are saying, you know what? This guy has a couple of really good points in his favor. Let's play Zool. So they did it first. Alex really enjoying the hero quite a bit here. And I'm happy about that. You can have good rotations.
Hey!
And there's my Medivh after all. Didn't think they would commit to it, but it makes a whole lot of sense.
Keldor, you know this game. I'm so proud of you.
I actually did not expect them to take Medivh, but he makes a lot of sense here. Just that's why I mentioned it earlier, because you have the protection for ETC. If Tassadar decides to not go for the damage on Archon, but goes into the Force Wall that you pointed out, you have a really good escape tool. He's fantastic on the map. You have good vision as well. It's one of the reasons why Expert, for the longest time, just auto-locked Medivh every single time they approached this map. And then teams started to ban him out against them. So I actually think it's a fantastic last pick for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect against everything Strict Esports has. Azul Bone Prison coming in, you get the escape right away. Johanna wants to condemn, engage you, just back away from the fight. Blessed Shield popping out. Here's the Force of Will. So Medivh coming in, great for Team Good Guys. Will they be able to handle the pressure of Tracer, though? That's the one you have to keep an eye on here. With the wave clear being available for Tricked Esports here on the right with that Azul and that Johanna, Tracer has the full extent of the battleground to move around, especially after the first Web Weaver phase, if they open up forts.
Can I just say how happy I am that we're back?
Yeah, man, we get to sit here and analyze and drop down knowledge and stuff, man. It feels so good. It does.
Guys, you have no idea. It's so much fun being here again. So being back in the studio and finally having HGC Europe back. So I hope that you are looking forward as much to the games as we are. We're going to jump into our first one in just a second. And I can't wait to see what happens now, because TGG is on the last spot. But everyone you talk to said they have a bit more potential than that. And they were not really happy with how they performed in the first part. So right now they have already an opportunity to take a few points off Tricked. But they actually told me that I mean, if you are all the way down at the bottom, you have to analyze the standings. And you have to really look at it and say, who are the teams that we have to beat if we want to get out of the Crucible? And they know that the biggest contenders are Zealots, and of course, on the other hand, and also the Ducks. But this would be a huge victory for them if they can now take a few maps off Tricked.
Can Team Good Guys get the boost they're looking for, getting a victory here in Week 6 of HGC? Let's go ahead and hop into game number 1 on Tomb of the Spider Queen.
Game number 1, ladies and gentlemen, Tomb of the Spider Queen between the Good Guys and Tricked Esports. And to the left side, Antihero on Malthael, BKB on ETC, Rega played by Kronos. We have the Wolf, Greymin played by Raid Boss, and Medivh by XA for the Good Guys.
On the right side, in the red, it is Tricked Esports. Nape playing the Uther. Gonna have Crosby on Tassadar, Alex the Prodigy on his Void, the roaming Azul, Make on Tracer, and Rimmer on Johanna. And looking at Tricked Esports, Make, man, he was somebody going into week number 1 that we had doubt, really floating above his head. But he's been fantastic for this team, and part of the reason why they're in a spot where they can even think about maybe going to BlizzCon.
Exactly. This is a really good point that you open up with. Tricked Esports has a shot of going at BlizzCon. We have a lot of teams currently in the European scene that have a theoretical chance to make that happen. And that's 5 in total. So we're going to see a huge battle in this second part of Phase 2, where all of the teams are attempting to make this a reality. And Tricked Esports, with a couple of good plays, has a shot to make it work. But for that to happen, they need to take down the Good Guys.
The Good Guys hoping to handle the pressure of Azul and Johanna. Watch as they continue to move around. There's 2 ways they can do it. They can try to match and wave clear, which they're kind of missing out on with Greymin and Rhaegar being here. They're not quite enough to handle the push of Johanna and Azul in 3 different lanes. So what they're going to use is BKB on that ETC. They're going to look for possibilities to move in for a fight and get engaged. Maybe catch Azul that's overextending in the lane.
We already have a bit of a difference in the split on lanes here. Tricked Esports has Alex now roaming between 2 lanes, which is usually where you want Zul to be. Then opens up the question, who do you have at that bot lane? And since Tricked doesn't really have another hero that is strong on the solo lane, you could run with Tassadar. He's most likely going to lose out. It's him simply saying, let's put 2 of the heroes down to the bot lane and then we rotate with 3. And so far they're doing a decent job with that. Even thinking about moving Johanna every now and then down to the bot lane if they see an opportunity to get a kill.
Yeah, it's all about trying to find a moment where your opponent doesn't catch the slow rotation. If they miss out in it, you lose out on a turret. Rimmer actually coming down to the bottom, as you mentioned, and here's that portal play. The moment Johanna goes in for the engage, get away from Tracer, watch out for that pulse bomb.
Medivh is going to make it really hard for Tricked Esports to catch the Good Guys off guard. As long as Zay plays well, it should nearly be impossible for them to get a kill. The only hero that can really attempt to try and keep up with them would be, of course, Tracer, that can dart in and drop a quick ult and then simply move out. But as long as the portal play on the side of Xay's Medivh is on point, and he's able to also get his shields in, there shouldn't really be too many surprises here. So in the early game, the pressure is more on the lane itself, and that's what we're seeing here, with Crosby and Market just trying to push structures instead of focusing on heroes.
That chase that you do mention will be a little bit easier for Tracer to pull off at level 7 when Tassadar does get that range, but hang on, Nape in trouble in the top lane. BKB finally finding that moment here. They get a Nuther pick off with the help of Greymane and Rhaegar.
This is one of the great strengths of running an ETC. Especially in the early stages of the game, you have so much pressure on these small maps where you can, with a good slide, immediately isolate a target. And this is something that BKB just did, and it gives them, of course, a slight lead here. Also, when it comes to turn-ins, they're looking strong. 22 gems already turned in, and constant interruptions from every hero on the side of the good guys. Just now we've seen it with Zay moving in and just dropping, and the next interrupt so that we have no gems turned in for Trick Esports just yet.
Still gotta love what Trick Esports is doing, though. Having the middle and the top lane pushing in from Johanna and the Azul, they've gotten to a point where they've broken down the wall in the bottom left. Typically, you don't see walls falling very early on Tomb of Spider Queen until you do get that turn-in that you were alluding to earlier. But them having the Tracer and Tassadar on the bottom and the amount of strength they're putting on Team Good Guys, they've been able to open up slightly here. So keep it up, Trick Esports, but Team Good Guys answering back.
I'm really liking how Good Guys currently are playing this. They have a lot of control here, and you're right. The structural damage that Trick is able to push out is a problem, or could be a problem later on, especially if Alex, now turning in 21 gems, is able to follow that up with additional turn-ins so they get Webweaver waves. So the structural damage is a concern. But overall, how they are playing the map, I have to give some credit to the Good Guys here. The question, of course, is just can they keep it up towards the late game?
This does hurt, though. Trick Esport just used their Pulse Bomb. They hadn't engaged on Team Good Guys. Were looking to get Raid Boss killed off, but Make barely missing out on that Pulse Bomb does take away any kill potential to have for a small amount of time. They have to rebuild up that Pulse Bomb and be ready to move in, which should open up Team Good Guys to force a situation. You see it here in the middle, pushing on Rimmer, trying to get their opponent to back up, get level 7, and go for that turn-in that you keep talking about.
Yeah, we haven't seen a single turn-in yet, and we're already on level 7. But that bottom lane worries me a little bit for Team Good Guys. They lost the entire wall, and they have taken damage on the fort itself. And that is just something that shouldn't really happen with Malphite. You can see that TGG has a bit of a problem adapting to the lane split that we're seeing from Trick Esports. So that is definitely a concern here. But up at the top lane, Alex in a bit of trouble. Medivh going down at the bot lane. In the meantime, Raid Boss is also in a bit of a pinch here, but able to move back. But still tricked now with a turn-in and the first Webweaver wave.
Nape with the cleanse there, and then Make and Crosby getting those final turn-ins, and this is where Trick Esports hopes to open up that bottom side. What's great about them breaking down the turrets is they have multiple options off this Webweaver now. They can push the top lane, get turret experience off of the structures, which is the easiest route, or they can go for the big play, which typically you want to do with the Tracer comp, is go for that fort on that bottom they've already opened up. Let's see what they're going to do.
I'm currently really not too happy for the Good Guys here. I think the early game, they started with a really nice domination on a lot of these rotations and the early turn-in, but they failed to get the first turn-in completion, and that is a massive problem since Trick opened up the bot lane. We talked about this earlier. Zul is going to have an easy time with the Webweavers to destroy the fort, and now that we see Trick with a massive force in the mid lane trying to aim for a second, this could really start to snowball. Personally, I think TGG needed to get the first Webweaver wave with the way this game was just unfolding in the early game, and they did fail to do that. So now they're running into massive problems here.
Yeah, and now the next goal is just to clear out these Webweavers and work towards level 10. But Trick Esports, look at it. They're about to hit 10 now. In fact, if they get a kill and soak one more entire lane, they're good to go on that 10 and can force fights. Suddenly you have Skeletal Mages come on online, that possible force while we were talking about. They can continue to go ahead and catch Team Good Guys.
Now, there is one good thing for TGG, and that is that even though they are behind in experience and they don't have level 10, there are just not quite enough gems on the side of Trick to get another second turn in. That's important for them right now. But TGG is definitely in a much worse spot than they should have been. With how they were controlling the turn-in points at the start of the game, they needed to be the first team to turn the gems in and make sure that they get some structural damage out of it.
They are hurting right now, and Trick Esports continues to push on them. Make leading the charge here, harassing in the top lane. Zul can now go to his old tried and true combo of soaking 2 waves at once, dealing with the middle and the bottom, while the other 4-man needs to go ahead and groups up on that top side. Team Good Guys is getting close to level 10 though, which will be their moment for them to respawn back.
When we're talking about level 10s, keep in mind Divine Storm taken on the side of Uther, and now we have level 10 abilities for the Good Guys as well. And with that, we have, of course, the potential of a Leyline Seal into Mosh Pit combo. If they can pull that off, that would be a bit of a nightmare for Trick Esports.
Especially with Tormented Souls to follow that up. Make keeps harassing, and Team Good Guys makes the play to move forward. They know they need to turn in. They need to get their own pressure on their opponents. They want to counter-strike what Trick Esports has already pulled off in the last couple minutes of the game. But so far, Trick is harassing well. Rimmer goes forward. Power slide from BKB.
They're going in. Anti-hero stunned immediately. Gets the cleanse. Here comes the Leyline Seal. Oh. BKB looking for the mosh pit. Not just yet, but they go for Rimmer Baller. In comes the Iron Skin, but still the escape as Greymane gets locked down and is obliterated.
Anti-hero not able to get the full duration of Tormented Souls off because of the Leyline Seal. It was just enough to allow Trick Esports to answer back and get a kill on Greymane.
Yeah, and a bit of a problem is definitely that we didn't even see the mosh pit come into play. BKB didn't see an opportunity to drop the ult here, so a little bit of a coordination issue, and that leads into a second turn in for Trick. It's really the objectives that I feel what's going wrong for the Good Guys right now. I think the early game of them was strong, but they failed to get the first turn in, which should have been theirs. Now they failed to get the second one after they were trying to take the fight. And they didn't get the kill against Johanna, so that is starting to become a massive problem. And we all know that if you play on Tomb of the Spider Queen and you fail to control your objective, your opponent can snowball heavily by taking the extra experience that structures yield.
And that fact is compounded by Tassadar Tracer, which when they find an opening, they kill, like we just saw there. Rhaegar getting picked off in the top lane. So kills coming in, and that will continue to happen for Trick Esports. They have the full map for a playground, while Team Good Guys, they have to hang behind the turret, work on getting 13 from the safety of their own base, which is great for Trick Esports. You see them moving in, keeping up the harassment, and allowing Zul to freely walk around the map.
Yeah, go for the throat on the side of Greymane if they can get those kills, but at this point, we're currently looking at level 13 talents, as he said. They have the push coming in. No keep has fallen yet, but the walls have crumbled, and this is an issue. Trick finds themselves with a massive push, still intact at the bot lane, where they're attempting to burst through another wall.
And they're going to do it, as Rhaegar and Malthus on the top lane, so Some Good Guys can't even respond here. With them disappearing, Trick Esports might have to play a little bit on the safe side, but they drop a Bone Prison just to get their ETC to back on up. And the moment Team Good Guys shows a 5-man squad in the bottom, Trick Esports backs up, doesn't give them an opportunity, puts Johanna in that front line. She's able to escape at any point with the Iron Skin.
Zay has the vision. Anti-hero trying to sneak to the top. Yeah, as we have Zay providing vision, Anti-hero knows fully well that he is safe to turn in, and that's exactly what he's doing on his Malthael now, riding straight into the middle. They're gonna get the turn in. Keep in mind, they are still a level behind, 2 levels behind, 1 talent behind. But it would allow them to at least get closer and get the level 13 talent if they can now push with the Web Weavers. And it helps with the defense in the mid lane as well. They don't want to fight just yet, but they might be forced into that battle if Trick keeps the pressure up.
Team Good Guys looking to answer back. Webweaver held back in the middle of the keep there. Nice little push there from Trick Esports to keep the Webweaver from being too effective. And in terms of just looking at the minimap, Trick Esports should be able to handle this push pretty well. Rimmer moves forward, brings up the Condemn. Pulse Spam will be used, but Zay, already using a Force of Will be killed on Medivh.
Yeah, gets killed on Medivh. Rhaegar nowhere to be found at this point. Kronos was on his way to the bot lane, and that was just a big problem with communication there. BKB sees Uther, gets baited a bit, and tries to slide in to get an isolation kill. They are not level 13 yet, so half the team wants to take the fight. The other half says, guys, why are we fighting? We don't have 13 yet. We just got Web Weavers. Kronos is trying to take the long way around and is way too late to save Hero then, so lack of communication here resulting in a death at the worst possible time.
Easy defense for Trick Esports, handling the first turn in quite well. Make is getting caught on the side. Raid Boss does dive in, but he's going to blink on out. BKB will get one solo mosh pit on Uther. He's dancing, but he turns around, he stuns, he Divine Storms. The Ancestral Healing does come out, but here's a big Tormented Souls.
Not bad down. Uther dead, but so are 2 heroes on the side of the Good Guys. Medivh and Greymane have both fallen. ETC is dying as well, as we have Trick Esports moving in and trying to take the rest down as well. Malthael falls, Rhaegar the only survivor, and with 16 versus 13 on the level board, we immediately have Trick Esports moving to the top to claim the boss.
And they got a big power play available. They can go for a turn-in after this, get the boss pushing in, having 3 Web Weavers and a boss pushing in 1 lane. That's a guaranteed keep, maybe 2. Even the game if you get a pick or 2, especially with the 3-level lead they now have over Team Good Guys. Trick Esports coming out in Week 6, looking fresh.
The Good Guys definitely with a lot of communication problems here. Level 13 talents weren't even picked when that fight was taken, and this is just once again showcasing that they're not all on the same page. Some people want to get the fight, some people don't really want to head into it just yet. And even though this time we had a really good ancestral healing from Rhaegar, from Kronos, it just didn't work out in their favor. So Tricked is just absolutely running away with this game. Another Web Weaver wave, timed perfectly well with a boss, and at this point this is at least gonna mean top keep, but it could even be game if Trick gets a kill here.
The push continues, 17-14. Trick Esports already beaten down that top keep, as you were mentioning. BKB will not have Mosh Pit for 25 more seconds. Trick Esports, knowing this, continues to keep pushing forward. Anti will be putting some pressure on the side. Archon will be used by Crosby as they continue to siege.
This is not looking good. The keep is down and the Web Weaver is just now coming down the ground. If they get any kill here against BKB, against anybody else, then this might be lights out. How is Trick gonna play it? They actually move back. They're saying, boys, let's not go for core. We are going to take a second keep in the mid lane, or at least going to try to, and then take the game from there. They have a 3-level lead. They have still the level 16 advantage, and with 2 keeps down, they would have an easy game if they play it safe, and that's what they're currently hoping for.
Yep, gotta be careful before that 16 power spike hits for Team Good Guys. If you have 1 or 2 kills that happen on Trick Esports side, Team Good Guys could have that spot where they make that comeback. So playing safe is a wise choice here. Remember, with that 13 coming in line, running wild, if Racer were to overblink at any point, Greyman can dive in, bring the go for the throat, get the kill, especially even with the Tassadar shields coming in.
Tassadar has to drop another storm here to finish
There
the keep
it
off, and there we have it. So that is 2 keeps down, and the third one nearly eliminated down at the bot lane. Rough times for sure for the Good Guys, and they still struggle to hit their level 16 talent. And that is something they failed to do in the last fight, where they were not able to, or where they did just simply not wait for the talent to be taken before they went into a battle, and this time they don't want to make that mistake again, but it might cost them another keep. They are in a horrible spot. They haven't even taken a single fort yet.
They need to get 16 and then force the fight immediately, in my eyes. It's the only way they can start making a comeback in some way, especially with all the heroics up. They got to have BKB hit that money mosh, be important there, land 2 to 3 people, get a kill, and then they can start moving forward with that Greyman and Malthael. The keep, though, is continued to be under siege as Trick Esports is fighting every minion wave they can to push it in with Zul. Yeah,
and Trick should get it. Now, with Crosby dropping another few storms any second now, that should definitely be the last keep of the game here on the side of the Good Guys. At least that is. Yeah, there comes the Ancestral. Good protection on Raid Boss, also for Medivh. The keep has fallen, though, and this is more or less a checkmate position that we find themselves in now. At this point, all that Trick Esports has to do is play the long game. They have all the time in the world. Every lane is going to be pushing out against the Good Guys. And Trick knows that for the Good Guys at this point, the only way how they can come back into this game is by winning a big team fight. So Trick can just literally look at this and say, guys, just don't commit. Yeah. Don't fight them unless they commit to a really bad position, and we can always just lay back a little bit and play this a bit more passive, since lane after lane is going to push in against their core.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn here if you're just trying to figure out how to win the game through the basics. Trick Esports is executing on the basics in the best way possible, playing around talent advantages, playing around map control, and playing around their ability to use the map objective, and they continue to move forward here. All they got to do is just not throw, as you mentioned.
I really like what we just saw here while you were talking and explaining a few of the basics here. We had Zay actually just hovering over the camp that was taken, and of course Trick, they see it and they just drop the Trick spray the entire time.
They got tricked.
Trying to bait him in, trying to be like, you want this? You can get it.
Oh no, BKB.
Talking about things that you can get, BKB is incredibly low, but actually survives, at least for now. But let's talk about the big problem. 20. Half a level away for Trick Esports. That's all that they have to wait for. Then they have another 3-level window. And we already have catapults at the core of the Good Guys. This is what we've been talking about. time isn't working in Trick Esports' favor.
Oh, we're going to have the full engage though. Nabe turns around, drops the Divine Storm on Malthael, who's used Tormented Souls. Members getting low for Trick Esports, but they're still alive. Ancestral Healing will be used as Team Good Guys is looking for the fight, but Make, he finds an angle. He goes for Zay.
And Medivh is down. Medivh down, and now Greymane might fall too. He indeed does, and so does HGC. Tricked Esports, they have their 20s. They take the fight. The core is already suffering on the left side of the map as the good guys are losing ground and losing players. The shields are down, and Tricked Esports is going to walk away with the victory here.
Going straight for the core, and the first victory of the day here for HGC Week 6 will go into favor of Tricked Esports as they'll be taking on the good guys here 1-0.
Trick takes the victory, the good guys defeated, and it was a pretty dominant series, but I have to say it didn't have to be. In the early game,